Well, I'm sitting here in the studio, record in my hand, ready to drop the needle, and somebody sends in this letter asking me a question nobody's ever really, asked me before. Who are the greatest wrestlers I ever saw? Ooh boy. So the record's just gonna have to wait a spell because, once you get me talking about this stuff, there ain't no stopping me. Now the first fella that pops into my head, and I don't rightly know why he's the first one. He just is old King Kong Bundy. Big bald-headed rascal, 300 and some pounds, mean look on his face. And back in them days, the locker room was just crawling with giants. You had me, you had Andre, you had Stud, and right there in the middle of it, you had Bundy just glaring at everybody like he wanted to eat them for breakfast. Me and him, we tangled for, I want to say 2 years or better. Up and down the road, town after town, same two big old boys squaring off. And, after a while you get so you know a man's rhythm better than you know your own. We had this little cutoff spot we'd do where he'd take over with a knee and I'd come back with a boot. And we did that same dance, I bet, 100 different nights in 100 different buildings. But the one everybody, and I mean everybody, still brings up to me is that 6-man thing we did at the big show in the Silverdome back in '87. Me and my two little partners against him and his two. Now, I'll be honest with you, and I don't mind saying this, that was not a good match. Wasn't technical, wasn't smooth, nothing special about it as far as wrestling goes, but Lord, the size of that crowd that day. I've never in my life felt anything like it. Ground was shaking, and so that's the one folks remember, not because we worked hard on it, but because the whole world was watching at the same time. And that right there taught me something about Bundy. He wasn't out there trying to be Ricky Steamboat, he wasn't chasing 5-star matches. What he was good at, real good at, was making a moment feel big. He'd stand there not moving much, just this mountain of a man, and the crowd would do half the work for him, just being scared of him. That's its own kind of talent. Not everybody's got that. We were never drinking buddies or nothing like that. It wasn't that kind of relationship. But I respected the fire in him. Respected that he showed up night after night and gave the people something to boo the fool out of. He passed on a few years back now, and I think about him every now and again when I hear that Silverdome story get brought up one more time, which it always does. Now, from Bundy, my mind kind of jumps over to Randy, Macho Man. And this is a different kind of fella altogether, Wasn't a giant, wasn't trying to scare nobody with his size. It was something else coming off of him. Something you could feel before he even said a word. I got to stand right there next to him, shoulder to shoulder, more or less, in that big old team match at Survivor Series back in, I believe it was '88. Me, Hulk, Randy, Hercules, Coco, all of us together against them Twin Towers and their bunch. And that right there is one of the proudest nights of my whole career, just being allowed to stand in that lineup. But it's not really the match I remember most, if I'm honest with you. It's what happened before we ever walked out there, back in the room, getting ready. Randy was a different animal back there than what people think. Wasn't joking around much, wasn't loose like some of the boys. He was quiet almost, pacing, talking to himself a little, getting his head right. And I remember thinking, now here's a fella who is not going to give you one lazy second, not for nobody, not ever. That stuck with me, because, and I've said this before, our business, it can trick you into thinking the crazier your costume is, the less serious you got to take the actual work of it. And Randy proved that wrong every single time. Craziest voice in the business, craziest outfits you ever saw, and underneath all that, one of the most disciplined men I ever stood next to. He'd go over every little detail in his head like a preacher going over his sermon. I think that changed something in how I looked at my own gimmick, if I'm being truthful. I was the goofy country boy, the fun one, the one making the fans laugh and dance along. But watching Randy back there, pacing, dead serious, it taught me you can still play a big old character and respect the living daylights out of the job at the same time. Those two things ain't got to fight each other. We lost him too early, and every time that Survivor Series footage gets played somewhere, I still catch myself looking for him in that lineup before I even look for myself. Now here's a name that kind of started it all for me, whether folks realize it or not. Roddy Piper. Before there was ever a Hillbilly Jim, I was just some big old boy sitting in the front row, hollering with everybody else. And it was Roddy who spotted me down there and pulled me up onto his show, Piper's Pit. And I mean, that right there is the whole reason any of this ever happened for me. And he offered right then, right there, to train me himself. Now you got to understand, back then Roddy was the top heel in the whole company, the man everybody loved to hate. And here he is offering to take me under his wing, but I went a different direction. I said I wanted Hogan instead. And I still think about that sometimes, how different my whole life could have gone if I'd said yes to Roddy that day instead. We tangled plenty after that on the other side of things, me and my family against him and his crew, night after night on the road. But that's not really the story I want to tell you. See, years later, I mean years and years later, WWE put a bunch of us old timers in a house together for this little show they were doing. And Roddy was right there with me. Same fella who discovered me way back when, and now we're roommates, gray-headed, arguing over who's going to use the blender. And you know, one morning I just remember watching him trying to make himself a shake, cussing at the machine like it owed him money, and I'm sitting there thinking, this is the same man who used to scare the fool out of grown men on television. That's when you really get to know somebody. Not in the ring, not under the lights, but in a kitchen first thing in the morning, being cranky about a blender. He was good to me in that house. Genuinely good to me. And I got to see the real man behind all that fire he used to bring. We lost him not too long after that show wrapped up. And I'll tell you, that one still sits heavy with me, because I got to thank him at least. Got to tell him more or less that none of this, the radio show, the Hall of Fame, none of it happens without him pulling a fan out of the crowd one night and saying, come on up here, boy. Now, this next one, I mean, there's no way around it. I got to talk about Hulk Terry, because whatever came out of the rest of my career, it all traces back to getting brushed up against this man. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Hulk Hogan was like Elvis in this business. I mean that serious. It wasn't just that he was popular, you know, it was like walking next to a bolt of lightning. Wasn't nobody in America more over than that man was right then. And when they started putting me next to him on the television, acting like he was teaching me the ropes, that was it for me. That was my whole career decided right there in about 10 seconds of tape. See, I knew good and well I wasn't no real hillbilly. I was just a big boy from Kentucky who liked basketball. But being seen next to Hulk, that gave the fans something to grab onto. Gave me that connection, you know, that spark you got to have, or the crowd just looks right through you. Now, behind the curtain, away from all that, he was something different than the fella you saw on television, but not in a bad way. I mean, he was kind to me, real easy to be around. I remember one time we're traveling together and some kid comes running up wanting an autograph, wanting a picture, the whole deal, and Hulk just stops everything, gets down on one knee so he's eye to eye with this boy, and gives him 5 whole minutes like there wasn't another soul in that airport. That's something you don't forget. That's the real man showing through the character. He always used to say it was him and Vince driven the machine together, but I tell you what, everybody else in that company, myself included, we was just riding in the back seat, getting the benefit of however fast that machine was moving. And I don't get emotional about much, but I mean, every bit of what come after for me, the radio show, the shirt's still selling after all these years, all of it, starts with a man I barely knew taking the time to make a stranger feel like somebody. I got brushed up against Hulk Hogan, and I have been living off that shine ever since. And now, this last one here, this is the one that means the most to me, if I'm being honest with you. Andre the Giant, and it ain't close, really. Me and him, we were big men in the same locker room full of big men, but Andre was something else entirely. I mean, the man was his own kind of weather system. Couldn't hide, couldn't go nowhere without the whole world stopping to stare at him. And I think that wore on him more than people ever knew. But with the fellas he trusted, and I was lucky enough to be one of them, he was just about the warmest soul you'd ever want to meet. I remember one time flying home, day after Christmas I believe it was, and Andre calls me over, tells me, come sit by me. And Lord, we must have drank enough on that flight to float the plane home ourselves, just talking, laughing, telling stories the whole way. Wasn't nothing fancy about it, just two big old boys enjoying each other's company way up in the sky. That's the Andre I knew, not the legend, just my friend. And he had this way of handling himself too calm, real calm, even when somebody got a little too rough with him in the ring. I recall one of the younger boys came at him stiff one night, tried to make himself look tough, and Andre just stuck that big old hand out, caught him up under the chin like he grabbed a hold of a little old toy, stopped the whole thing cold, didn't even look bothered by it. Just funny to him, mostly. What I respected most, though, and I mean most of all, wasn't the size, wasn't none of that. It was how he treated the people he cared about. If Andre liked you, you had a friend for life, plain and simple, and if he didn't, well, you'd know that too. Wasn't no in between with that man. Now I gotta have one match with him that still means the world to me. Biggest win of my whole career. Matter of fact, getting my hand raised against Andre the Giant himself. But truth be told, I don't think about that win half as much as I think about that flight home, the two of us just laughing in the dark. I sure wish he'd have stuck around longer, wish he could have seen how far this business went after he left us. But I got to know him, got to call him a friend, and out of every big name I ever stood next to in this business, that right there is the one I'm proudest of. Well, look at that. Been sitting here so long talking, the needle's still just resting right there on the label, waiting on me. Ain't dropped it once this whole time. Guess I had a bit more to say than I figured I did, you know. And funny thing, answering that letter, going back through all them faces in my head, I didn't set out to rank nobody, never was much for that, honestly. Ain't my place to be saying who's better than who in this business. There's smarter men than me, folks that study the tape, that get paid to argue about that kind of thing. I just got to live it, got to stand next to it. And I think that's worth something too, even if it ain't a real official list. I keep thinking about how strange my whole life turned out if you step back and look at it. I wasn't no world champion, wasn't ever in one of them big main events everybody remembers forever. I was just a big country boy who liked basketball more than farming, who got lucky enough to be standing in the right hallway at the right time, and somehow that turned into a life I could have never dreamed up sitting on my porch back home. And I think that's the real gift in all this, if I'm honest with you. Not the matches, not the titles, none of that. It's that I got to be in the room with all them fellas. Got to drink with one of them on an airplane, got to live with another one arguing over a blender of all things. Got to stand shoulder to shoulder with a man so serious about his work it near scared me straight. Got to feel what it was like just being near somebody so over, so big that the whole room changed when he walked in. That's not something you can go by, you know. That's not something every fella gets handed to him. I don't get to see most of them anymore. A few of them I don't get to see at all no more, and that part I try not to dwell on too long, or I'll be sitting here till supper time with a heavy heart instead of a good story. But I'll tell you what, I'm grateful. Grateful I got to be a little old hillbilly walking around amongst giants, real and otherwise. And I don't take one bit of it for granted, not for one single day. Well, reckon that letter's answered now. Best I know how to answer it anyway. So, I'm going to go on and drop this needle finally and let some good old country music play for you folks, because Lord knows I've done enough talking for one Saturday.